So, I'd like to just bring you to the agenda. Take a look at that. We'll just go ahead and approve the March minutes. And we'll just take about 1 minute just to kind of look over those. If there's any corrections or edits needed, please let me know. I have a question also just pertaining to the sustainability office request in the minutes. And I guess I could just kind of bring it to you because Michael, you and Dolores mentioned being interested in that. And I was just wondering if Bridget got in touch with you, if anything happened.
No,
Okay. So are there any corrections or edits needed to the minutes? If not, I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there so that we can approve these minutes. So if I can have.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. So, the March minutes have been approved. And Michael, I guess I'll just try to follow up with Bridget and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so on the agenda, we're gonna look at, open it up for public comment, and I know it's like really early on, but we'll just open it up if anyone has anything they'd like to say, a question. We have about 5 minutes for public comment. All right, well, thank you guys for being here.
May I ask a question?
Oh, yes, Ms. Carroll.
A couple of meetings ago, I had asked whether there was any, I'm sorry, Carol Rolla, whether there was any plan or intention to having a connection with CPAC. Some of what you had been discussing at that meeting seemed to have some overlap. There seemed to be an interest in doing that, and I've not seen anything that suggested that had been done, so I just wanted to bring that forward again.
That's a great question and a comment. So what Ms. Carroll was just speaking of is if anyone attends the CPAC meetings or would like to from this commission, and it's nothing that you have to commit to right now, but we just want to open it up to see if we can begin to kind of cross-pollinate with CPAC. So just keep that in mind, and we'll just follow up via email to see, just giving you an update. And Carol, if you can email me your meeting dates.
I'm no longer on it, I've rolled
Okay.
off, but I do still think that the two entities share some common interests. They meet on the first Wednesday of the month, and their regular meetings are at Public Works Building on Charlotte Street, and those meetings usually start at 5:30, but it is on the city website
Yes.
to check.
everybody know what CPAC is?
That's a great question. If you want to just give us just maybe a half a second.
Oh boy, I've never spoken for half a second. I'm about trying. CPAC is the City of Asheville Citizen Police Advisory Committee. It is advisory only, it has no authority to actually address complaints, but it does have the opportunity in meeting with the command staff of the department on a regular basis to identify and at least raise up issues of community concern about police policy and practice.
Thank you.
How many people do you have on the commission, or do they have on the commission right now?
I don't really remember at this point. I know there were still some unfilled seats that were being looked at, but they, unlike this body, have a geographic representation according to the enabling ordinance. And in addition, so there's north, south, central, east, and west Asheville represented. And in addition, there are specific community segments for which there are seats, and there are non-voting members who are representatives of the police department who regularly attend.
Ms. Carroll, I know you said that you no longer sit on that advisory board, but has anyone else shown interest in the commission, the Human Relations Commission, kind of coming to CPAC and being a part of it?
And I've had discussions with a couple of my colleagues in CPAC who are aware, just through my own communication, of some of the issues that you have raised with regard to what your processes are, what your authorities are. If helpful, I would be glad to get you and the chair of CPAC to get anything I can do to support communication. I'm more than happy to be able to do on an informal basis.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So coincidentally, I am your liaison, and I'm also the liaison to CPAC. CPAC has at this point in time 9 members and 4 members that are not voting members, including myself. I'll give you a little bit of brief history. Before this board was formed, boards and commissions, which I also serve on, had made a recommendation to dissolve CPAC because we were in the hopes that at some point in time, maybe this body would like to take on that role, or possibly make recommendations to make it a subcommittee of this body with those members serving under you, or however that may come about. So as far as communication with CPAC, if there's anything that you need done as far as you want to do, I'm more than happy to pass that information on. Allison Scott is the chair of CPAC, and whatever you all decide, need information about CPAC, if you want to take on some sort of role, that would be up to this body, but it was in consideration by council to possibly have CPAC dissolved, and we stepped back from that. It actually made it all the way to a meeting, and we stepped back from our vote on that because we wanted this body to come on board and see if it was something that they wanted to take over. If you all remember, CPAC was the committee that, around the Johnny Russ incident, that was down at the Grant Center, that was a CPAC meeting. So just to give you some hindsight on what they were actually trying to deal with.
Thank you. All right, so, are there any more public comments before we go down our agenda? Thank you to those who spoke. So, I want to bring your attention now to just our rules and procedures document, and we're going to take a look at that and discuss it. If you need a copy, just come and raise your hand if you want one.
I can look at it.
And we're going to, and it's also up.
Yeah, I can scroll up.
So the goal today is to take a look at our rules and procedures, and if there aren't any comments, edits needed, then we would love to pass a vote to approve this and have it. So just looking at the top here where it says quorum, most of our information has been taken from the ordinance as well as from our handbook that we received during our retreat. Article 1 is self-explanatory, and Article 2, the purpose, and the purpose literally comes from our ordinance, and it's also in our, speaking of goals, like our strategic plan. If you take a look in section 4, there is a change. So, as you all know, some members have an appointment of 1 year and or 2. So in this rule and procedure, we just kind of I thought that a 2-year commitment would serve this commission better than individuals sitting for 1 year. And if anyone disagrees, please state that now. Yeah, we'll be getting to that. Yeah.
Typically on boards, all offices are on a rolling yearly, in most cases, on a yearly rolling basis with elections held. And I guess in our case, it would probably be July or
easier to have a 2-year commitment rather than just rolling off annually.
I don't. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think it should be 1-year terms for any office on the board. If you get re-elected, that's fine, but I think it needs to be contingent year to year.
So what about individuals that have a 2-year commitment now?
That's really not my problem, nor should it really be any of our problem. If you have a 1-year term, I don't foresee anyone not being reappointed. And so you would have that second year, and if you want to run for chair again, then put yourself forward. But to lock in at 2 years when we first organized, that should have been addressed then. I mean, now that we're adopting rules and procedures and say, oh, we're just gonna give the existing officers a second year, I have a problem with that.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
I think the terms need to be 1 year. That's my opinion, regardless of how the structure is for the rotation of who got 1 year, who got 2 years. It's immaterial to me, in my opinion. I think it should be.
Let's take a moment and see what other people think.
Before you, can I just to give some clarifying information? So, as your liaison and also as a member of boards and commissions, that would actually select, who gets reappointed or whatever. So, when we first started off, the 1-year term was to get the term staggered. So I believe if you decide to, whoever's up decides to come back for reappointment, you would receive that 2-year term, and then everybody's terms will be staggered from there. If that's just clarifying.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, do we elect officers each year?
We would elect if they do not want reappointment.
New officers are elected each year, regardless of whatever the individual's term is. We as a body elect new officers each year.
As a term is dissolved.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm hearing Michael Coe speaking in terms of making it 1 year. As the chair, that's not an option. Either we'll keep it the way we have it now, or we'll do a 2-year commitment. But we're not going to do in this rules of procedure a 1-year commitment. Because what I'm hearing you say is that you think it should just be annually, meaning 1 year, not even at all 2. Which, as this board is set up, we have individuals that have 2 years and a 1 year.
Well, Councilman Young, if I'm correct, is that everyone's gonna get to 2 years. This was how it was initially done, is, in essence, those who rotated off first essentially get 3 years, because if you're reappointed, you have an extension beyond those of us who got an original 2 year. I just think for propriety's sake, and that if you're gonna have annual elections, then terms must be annual. How do you have annual elections for 2-year terms?
No, we don't have annual elections for 2 years.
Well, you just said, if I'm mistaken, that we would have elections each year. So,
No, we
yearly
have
means
elections each time a seat opens up. So once an individual's time is dissolved or over, we re-elect. If an individual comes off the commission, we would re-elect. If an annual individual, which we have 6 people coming off now, we have to reappoint. So it's not if you have a 2-year commitment, we're reappointing every year. If you have a 2-year commitment, we're reappointing every 2 years.
As far as the chair, I'm the only person that's coming up for, as far as reappointment in the 1-year period that holds a office position. I'm the only one on the board at this time.
you mean as an officer?
As an officer, I'm the only person on the board at this time that's looking at that situation.
So if anybody else or anyone else could weigh in on this, because I definitely hear what you're saying, Michael, and it's not just you and I, it's everyone. So I'm saying to appoint individuals for a 2-year term, not just 1 year annually, meaning moving forward. So if you have a 2-year term now or a 1-year term, once your time is up, you are reappointed, or if that's what you choose. But what I'm asking is, in the rules, would we like to say a 2-year term or keep it the same, which is 1 and 2? Or am I not making sense?
Makes a lot of sense. But for those of us like me, I want time off. So, there might not be anybody else who wants to, but I know I don't want to.
look over this document and come back before we just sit and discuss it and make a vote to pass it. So I would like to propose that we go ahead and have time to look at this document, comb through, get your edits or your comments, and we come back to the drawing board on this.
The only comment that I have to make on the subject is I do feel that two-year appointments to the board itself would be more sustainable to the board overall as far as its ability to thrive long-term. As far as the office positions go, you know, I'm not egomaniacal and hold this as part of how I feel about the board. So as far as being vice chair is concerned, that is not my main concern. My main concern is to serve the board in the best capacity that I can. That's just to be a board member, that's to be a board member, whatever. I don't know how other people feel. I do think that though over time that two-year appointments, because even city council is elected on two-year terms, I think 1 year is when you meet 12, not even 12 times a year. A lot of times I think we have in all total essence overall 10 meetings that were scheduled. We missed 2 this year due to either holidays or other issues. I don't think 10 meetings is enough for an individual or a governance or body of people to be able to do the work so set forth that the mission of this board is to do. So I would like to see people that come on in the future to be able to have the opportunity to serve a due amount of time to where the board feels that it can be adequately served, and these folks that come on in the future can feel like they're doing some good work specifically. So that's my conjecture on that.
Anyone else? Just pertaining to Article 3, Section 4.
I have a question about just how commissions work in general, but are there instances where, like, for say, like, you have a 2-year appointment that you would just go for re-election for your chair seat again next year? Is that a possibility?
No, so that's a great question, thank you. If you look down, officers and duties, the vice chair and the chair will only serve in office for 1 year, whether you have a 2-year commitment or 1 year. So re-election for the officers has to take place annually. Okay, so any more questions? Do you need more time? I need a little bit of feedback from the commission members.
Are you saying that you feel like we haven't reviewed it, or you want to give people some more time and then vote on it at the next meeting in June?
I would feel comfortable.
I believe we do need to look at this. Also, I have one other question. And maybe Councilman Young might can answer this as well. So city council, well, boards and commissions are going to be able to pick the folks who are applying for the boards coming on, to my understanding, correct, Councilman Young?
So yeah, I probably should have went a little bit further than that. We'll make recommendations to council, and then those recommendations will be on a council agenda. So this body, like most bodies, can make recommendations themselves of the applicants, or you can reapply, and this body can say if they want to recommend you again to serve again. And then we'll take those into considerations in the boards and commissions meeting, and then we'll make our selections made to council, and then at a council meeting, council will be able to say if they have any say. And usually what happens is whatever boards and commissions decides usually doesn't get overturned unless there's something really egregious or someone has a real issue. And I haven't seen it happen.
And when's the deadline, Councilman Young, for?
I am not sure the deadline as far as what for applications to this body.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I should know this. I just had a meeting about it. Let me get back with you on that. I don't have the exact date. I'd hate to tell you something.
And that's the information when you get back with us, when you get back to the board with the
I'll have it
information.
for you before the end of the meeting.
Appreciate it, sir.
Madam Chair, whose input is this? Is this board and commission that rewrote this?
Yes, this is the commission pulling from our ordinance, pulling from the handbook of the city.
Or it's just done routinely?
Right. And because we're new, and a lot of us really don't have much experience just creating rules and procedures documents that we do use, some of it is drafted from the African American Heritage Coalition as well. There is one piece in here that is unique to our commission, and that is Article 10, conflict of interest. And so this piece came up from a few meetings in the past, and I thought that this, just kind of stating this clearly, it helps us to define who we are, and it's specifically unique to the things that may come up for us as a commission.
How do we feel about Article 9, Section 2, time limits? When it says any person addressing the commission, I'm assuming that means a person, is that during public comment?
Or if they want to give a presentation.
Okay, because we've had presentations here that have been longer than 3 minutes.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
We hadn't had our rules set.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
And this is the same as your city council uses as well.
Okay.
Are there any more questions pertaining to the rules?
So in Article 9, Section 4, it says like when you request to be in an agenda, this would be from the public, and this written request through, how would it be? Is there like a place in the city website to do this, or?
That's a great question. If I can lead.
Hi, so requests to be on the agenda, it's usually me and the chair who will go over and formulate the agenda, so you can contact either of us.
What about the public?
For the public, yeah, you can email me.
And then there's also a process that tells you how to do it on the city website. Okay, so should we take a vote to come back to this, or can we agree that yes, when we come back in June, that we'll be ready to come, bring our comments, edits, and or go ahead and vote to approve it?
I think we just for
So if we can have a motion?
I move the commission members review this document and come to the June meeting prepared to bring any edits and make a final vote on the document.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, so I want to bring to your attention the next document that we have, which is the work plan. And we have more copies here if you need it.
Yeah, I have some stuff. Anyone else need a work plan?
So if you look on the first page, you'll see here we have four goals set. And if you could just take a look at that. So this document is created in Smart Goals format. On the next page, you have the strategy, the measures of the outcome, action items, and how it's going to be supported in a timeline. And each goal has its specific strategies and measurements. And if anyone has any questions pertaining to these goals specifically, please share that now.
Madam Chair, while everybody's looking at that, I just want to give an answer to the Doris' question. The deadline is June 3rd. Boards and commissions could, extend their meeting,
And so we have to give you recommendations, or the city recommendations.
The application deadline is June 3rd. When that will be, heard in the meeting, we don't have it on the agenda yet.
And the application is online, correct?
Yes.
And remind people that it's a two-part application for HRCA.
Well, existing applicants that you have, applications that you have already received, would they be considered for this upcoming
So,
appointment selection process?
so if somebody has already filled out an application, it remains, viable for a certain period of time. I don't have the exact time period of how long it remains viable, it kind of stays in the queue. And so, sorry,
1 year.
it's 1 year? There you go. I don't know that for sure, but, I usually get that information from Maggie because she's always around. But, if they've already applied, then it'll come up. And so it'll be considered as well if they've already applied.
So in essence, everybody on the board needs to reapply as a one-year term.
I don't think you would have to just reapply. I mean, we can have a recommendation for reappointment. I mean, you're already serving, so there would be no need for you to really just go fill out another application. You're already serving. And it would be for a full 2-year term, it would be for a 1 year term.
So also with this document, it needs to go to a vote and be approved. And so would we like to do the same thing as we're doing with the rules and procedures, or do we feel confident that this work plan is good enough to go? Or do you need more time to kind of hone it?
I would say, considering that there are action items listed for June and July, that we might go ahead and think about approving it. It's gonna be a living document, so there'll be stuff added to it, so this will be the basic framework. And I had some time to look over this when I got it in the office. I think it looks great, and I would make a motion if everybody's comfortable to go ahead and approve it with, thanks to staff for helping, flush it out to this point.
Do you have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. All right, so motion is approved. Our work plan has been accepted, and we'll go from there. Any questions or comments?
You have a question, with the goal of community awareness and engagement, I know there's like a lot of want and desire to be in the community, but I'm curious as to what folks who have been working on this, envision on doing to make sure that people actually come to the meetings, because I think it's one thing to be like, I'm a community, and like, yay, ice cream, but like, how are we creating an environment where people feel comfortable to show up and actually engage in this process?
That's a great question. So in the past, we created a community engagement work group, and they designed and developed a framework for that. And so I think it would be a good time now for us as a commission to kind of go back over that framework so that we can pull out those points and have a solid plan of action. Okay, so we're gonna continue to move down on the agenda, and since a lot of questions came, Ms. Archie?
I apologize for interrupting. We need to go back to those two motions for the record. And there was a motion, there was a second, but there was no actual vote. No, who's for it, who's opposed, and so we need you to go back to both of those, and so to make sure that it's an official vote for the record.
All right, so let's go back to the rules and procedures. If we can have a motion? So we have to redo it.
Okay. I move that we review the rules and procedures between now and the June meeting and come back to the June meeting with edits and vote on it finally at the June meeting.
And I seconded it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion accepted. Thank you. Okay, looking now at the work plan, if we can have a motion for that as well. We have to redo the vote
The
because it
same,
wasn't.
the same way. I make a motion to approve the work plan with appreciation to staff for putting it together, helping us putting it together. Yes.
Nice, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion accepted. So since a lot of information and questions came up about appointments and reappointments, I wanted to take the time now to just address one of our new appointed members, Ivan. Welcome, Ivan, to the commission. Okay, so going down, we're gonna be looking at some unfinished business. And we're looking at an update on the HRCA community meet and greets. I could,
I can speak a little bit on it, but I would love it from someone who's on the committee to kind of summarize what was talked about. We had our first community engagement subcommittee meeting earlier in April to discuss plans for an HRCA open house. So, Chris, did you want to talk a little bit about the meeting, or whoever was at the meeting? I don't want to take all of that.
We discussed a lot about kind of joining in on another event that could already be taking place in the community, and just kind of having a booth and maybe some different topic areas or subjects, maybe something catered more towards the youth or children to help them get engaged. Correct me if I'm misguided. And then just have kind of people going around explaining what HRCA is and how people can get involved with us, doing some marketing about when our meetings are, how to engage with our meeting. It's all very much in a nutshell, but if there are any more questions, we kind of just decided to have another subcommittee meeting to kind of iron down more details, but we were looking at doing it in June and July.
So to speak a little bit more about that, per y'all's request, there is the idea to have some sort of an open house to engage the community with the HRCA. After discussions with the subcommittee, it's recommended that instead of having a full-on open house, that a discussion will be held about how to engage community members in pre-existing events and get the HRCA involved in that capacity.
I think that from what I remember of the meeting, and this is riffing off of what Ann said, there were kind of two different schools of thought. One school of thought was real aspirational, like we should have our own standalone events. And that's idealistic. I don't know if it's workable. And I think the other school of thought was for us to find an existing event that catered to the folks that we want to reach out to and kind of glom on to that event. Not glom on, but be a part of that event. And I think that I kind of personally felt that that was a better idea at this point in the still infancy of the commission. Kimberly's office sent around a list of questions that I think that we should answer regarding the event. Does everybody remember getting those questions sent around?
I think they may have just been sent to the subcommittee.
Maybe sent to the subcommittee, yeah. There were some good questions that were sent out that I think we need to answer definitely before moving forward. But if I remember correctly, those were the two main things,
Absolutely.
either stand alone or try to collect ourselves out there would be a great idea.
My biggest suggestion would be to also make sure that we are intentional about reaching out to the most marginalized people in our city. Oftentimes, one of the biggest complaints that I hear over and over again is people feel intentionally left out of processes, and one of the reasons why is because there's no liaison that people have gone to that are stakeholders within those personalized communities. I think it would be best suited if that's the way that committee is going to be steered, that it be very intentional about reaching out to individuals as we set our board up, people that represent the Latinx community, people who represent the LGBT community, people who represent the African American community, because if we don't, we'll look like that we're just kind of gatekeeping from booth to booth. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to get into the trenches early on with having elitism as far as being able to recruit community members to be engaged with the HRCA.
I absolutely agree with that. Michael Carter suggested several people to reach out to who kind of have plugs in different communities who already are doing marketing for community events, to help suggest that, because we did talk about that.
I guess one of the things I'm trying to say too is we should be dealing with specifically nonprofits and businesses or corporate conglomerates. I always deal with the bottom line base, which is individuals and people who have been boots on the ground and are invested into those communities, who live in those communities, who are beacons of the people in those communities. I want us to be able to, and I guess, and this is coming from my own personal experience, I want people to feel like they have a seat at the table and they don't necessarily have to drag their own chair.
Would you like to come to our next subcommittee meeting? Maybe provide the suggestions.
Sure, but y'all can reach out to me and email. I'll be more than willing to put those recommendations on papers.
And I'll say one thing and then I'll sit down. Just a reminder that with subcommittee meetings, we are supposed to be meeting regularly, just as we would with a normally scheduled HRCA meeting, just so to make sure that's successful, just making sure we have like regular attendance and regular meetings are being scheduled.
So also, I think that this kind of ties in with your question as well, just kind of being strategic and kind of seek out. And right now, is there any type of, is there a document of some sort that identifies organizations or individuals?
I don't think that exists. Maybe just on the paper in all of our notes. Yeah.
So at this time, we will not be having the meeting, correct?
No, but I think,
This pushed.
yes, there's gonna be another subcommittee meeting to kind of further brainstorm and maybe iron it out, and then we'll report back to the commission.
Any other questions? All right, so we're gonna be moving down the agenda to new business and discuss recommendations based off of the disparity study conversation. So I'm gonna open the floor up to our commission members and especially those that attended that conversation and that meeting.
And I'll say one thing, that for anyone else who's interested too, I have the link to send out. It was sent out, the YouTube link for the conversation was sent out to the HRCA listserv.
That meeting was a very eye-opening meeting for me personally, especially coming from a background that had a parent be a minority contractor with the city of Asheville. I also was able to secure the first minority contract for the city of Asheville. So I had known some things before. I kept hearing people, especially from the city, saying that, we need information and we need people to help us create liaisons with people and bridge the gaps. And one of the things that I said in that meeting was that I would like to see that if people are coming and bringing folks to the table, that we are a city and, as a people are gonna be, investing in making sure that we are, equitable and inclusive, we need to start being equitable and inclusive about, paying people who are actually doing the work to bring people to the table. So I would really like to see, and I also said that a lot of community members, have fear about coming to the city about bidding because it is a very, comprehensive, endeavor. And if you don't have any type of past experience, it can be extremely overwhelming and just downright, you just throw your hands up and say, forget it. There needs to be a lot of education and training, but I like to see somebody who has also been able to procure, contracts and, procure people who are viable to be able to sustain these contracts. I don't want to see black business owners, get contracts from the city that in no way in capacity financially or structurally to be able to, fulfill the requirements of those contracts. I would really like to see a more concentrated endeavor on being able to create, more positive outcomes that don't result in data coming back, secured year by year. We saw some numbers that were very, disparaging, even with the disparity study coming out, and knowing the facts of the past disparity studies, and it seems like we're still going in a downward spiral. And that's the issue for me. If we already know the problem, we keep just getting worse and worse. I don't want to see us to keep continuing in that circle, because it is a circle of chaos and disaster. We're just going to keep ending up in the same place over and over. Some comments were made that, we need to give this a couple more tries. If it's not working, that the book needs to be passed on to perhaps another entity or group of visionaries that can perhaps move some of this forward. I think we're going to have to have some very honest and real conversations between the city and individuals who are coming forth with these bids and people who need contractual help. So I would like to see an effort put forward to make sure that people aren't getting set up for failure. That's my biggest gist with that. We've been doing this for a long time here in the city, and we know that something's not working, but we need to pull out what's not working, replace it with something that does, so that we can move on as a city, and that we can truly be a progressive, equitable, and inclusive city that actually counts us out of something.
For me, I know that I was really disheartened to see that one of the departments really didn't know much of anything of her role or her job. And it just seemed like if you don't know, if you can't answer our questions, individuals coming off the street would be able to get what they need as well. So I'd like to recommend that we continue having these open forums in such a way that we did, because I believe that the Human Relations Commission, we're coming from a ground level perspective, and individuals will be able to get that information and fully understand what's being said, even if it is on a high city government level. And I would love to be able for us to have maybe quarterly meetings where we have these conversations, where we ask those questions, and where we pull community and individuals of color, black and brown people who own a business, who has the opportunity and or ability to go ahead and submit a contract, get a contract. But if they don't know what's happening, or if they don't know that this is an opportunity for them, they're not gonna show up to the table. And so I really think that these meetings should continue to happen through us.
I also, while during the presentation, what I was thinking was, sorry, how we could be a bridge between the city and the people, and I thought there's this huge disconnection because the city wants more businesses and businesses want this opportunities, and I feel us as a commission should be more informed or reaching out to know about this, the available opportunities and just putting more out for people. I think that's something that's not available right now and we should be working on.
I did go to the disparity meeting, and I appreciated the staff that were able to come. I would like for this commission to talk about ways that, our purpose is to promote and improve human relations and achieve equity. And I would like to see how we could leverage our purpose to help Rosanna Mulcahy in the tasks that she's being, that she's got in front of her. She's been here for 13 months, I believe she said, and she is taking on this huge assignment that has loads of baggage, and she is the staff person. She's the only staff person doing the outreach, and I would just like to see how our commission can look at our purpose and use what our purpose is to help her do her outreach.
And I would also like to add, maybe even spending more time with her so that we can
Yeah.
understand what is her role.
Right.
And that's something we have here too.
And maybe in this meeting, where I felt like she was a little bit, maybe it seemed like she was nervous or intimidated, but maybe we could ask her to come in and let her know that we're wanting to help her and move from there. I was disappointed that the city only has one staff person doing the outreach to minority businesses.
That's
I
what
wish.
you're gonna feel, you're setting people up for failure. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, Jacqueline did it for years. Was that Brenda did it for years with varying results. And I was when I don't know what I was thinking. I thought that there would be another staff person involved because outreach is pretty time consuming and it's got a lot of pieces to it. But having said that, she's the boots that we have on the ground. So I think that we should, within the confines of our role, support her as much as possible in her tasks.
Well, what it sounds like, what I'm hearing, is that that's a very good policy recommendation. Is for sufficient staff to monitor, to do outreach, to help recruit and reward those who are qualified minorities, not quotas, not tokens, but qualified minority businesses. Because when you look at a lot of the city's organizational tree, you see where their interest lies. You have downtown development specialists. That's quite development. You have a full office of sustainability. I mean, so where you put your treasure many times indicate where your heart is. And so maybe that needs to be one of our policy recommendations in conjunction with, we just had the great Flatiron building debate on Tuesday. And one of the biggest things was displacement. And how are other city policies for existing businesses with displacing people and moving them out of existing areas? It's going to create some crowd out. That's going to make it even difficult for more minorities to get in on the game. So those are what it sounds like is that we're actually a little bit further ahead than we thought we were. Because I'm hearing policy recommendations that
I love it, yes. So, now is that something that we should just, because I feel like it's important to also understand her role, even is there money in the budget to do that? So, we definitely need to look into it.
that's just been an ongoing problem. Maryland had it, then Brenda got it, then there was a real lag for a real gap for a number of years. There was really no one doing it. It was just kind of passing along. And that's why I think there at some point we can have a real policy discussion to make one person out of the number of staff the city has. They can find the staff for the things that they want. They train what they want. They purchase what they want. They fund what they want. And I've even found with a shared employee or moving minority business somewhere else altogether with some shared responsibilities. Everybody has a hand in it. Everyone has to answer. So that might be the way we need to go, but it's been a bastard child for 25 years. So,
Thank you for that historical context. So let's definitely continue that conversation. And I guess I'll get with you, let's get together and see how we can flesh some of this out and bring it back to the commission members.
I might be better with that point, because we really did just have the first minority contract sealed and delivered in the city, I think it's 33 years ago. I'm 40. So, that just goes to show that we're not that far out of the archaic age of discrimination. We're still sticking this line. So I think we need to be very aware of that as well.
and it's twofold. We have to look at how can we help existing businesses or those who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs with the contract. But we also, on the other hand, have to be looking at policies that we are continuing to hemorrhage Black citizens. You can't continue to lose Black residents and expect an uptick in the city doing business with Black people. It's just not going to work. When I was born in Asheville, Asheville was almost 19% Black. We might be at 13, maybe. So if you will continue to have just a decrease in available Black people and Black citizens, I just don't see we might get a little boost next year and the following year, but if the population trends, they're not looking good for us. They're looking good for everyone else, but they're horrible for us. We are leaving the green, the Charlotte, we're not going far. So that begs the problem of what's the city's overall economic development. Because it takes money to be an entrepreneur. And if you don't own a home, if you don't have a job with 401k or the ability to save, it's going to be very difficult to become an entrepreneur. No one is, I work in credit. I'm not going to live someone who has no money, no home, no asset, no pension, no anything. Here, you can't. So,
I have a question for you, Michael, and I guess for that. With the minority business department, because individuals did not funnel through that department, is that why the disparity is so large?
no, I don't
So
think
it's
so.
not based on that
I
department,
don't think so.
but that department bases whether individuals have an opportunity.
That department, indeed, probably has the best institutional knowledge outside my grandfather. That was done as a result of some other things that the city found themselves in some trouble then. So it was created to kind of placate people at the time, but they were never really serious about anything over a sustained period of time. And so, we don't want to question motives, but at this point, in 2019, the city of Asheville continues to find itself in trouble with things that they should not be in. Not at this point. We can't create what's there. We have a small Black population. I get that. But there's no proportionality whatsoever.
So I want to bring us back, thank you, Michael, really appreciate that. Just bring us back to the question or the comment, which is to discuss recommendations based on disparity study conversation. And I know one of the things that I'm hearing is a policy recommendation for the minority business department. Are there any program, minority business program, thank you, Ms. Cucci. Did anyone else?
I think we talked about further communication with Rosanna Mulcahy, doing some information gathering from her.
I think she talked about her strategic plan to do capacity building for potential contractors. I'd like to know more about what that looks like.
I think one thing that we may want to ask, and this is kind of goes up, is that we need to ask the council as a whole, what is their vision for a diverse job market that is not bringing back some committee has a bad habit of changing plans when it's convenient. So they'll say they have a plan, but if this project X comes in, if the plan is tweaked and things are waived and there's other things that are not required, they're not held to account. So, yeah, they probably have.
So what you're saying is just, what is the city's vision of attracting minority families, minority business owners?
And keeping what we have. We can't, we're not, we're at the point where we're losing. And so none, this is gonna be, this is not worthwhile for us to continue to hemorrhage the population.
One of the things that I did here in that meeting was that they're getting funded, the same people getting funded over and over, and they have no performance. Obviously, it's not working, because if it was working, we probably wouldn't be having some of these discussions right now. I would like to see performance metrics implemented before any money is given to any other entity to create minority anything, because we're losing. We have nothing to show for any of this money that's being dispersed. We have very few contractors. We have very few initiatives in place, and this has been going on for decades. And so I truly believe that money should not be given anywhere without performance metrics. I would really like to see an annual report or quarterly report come through several departments within the city that goes forward before city council. If people are requesting funding to be able to do job training or anything else that is supposed to create entrepreneurship or any type of equity in the city. I see a lot of nonprofits that are getting funded year in and year out and do no work. These people are getting money left and right, and we have nothing to show for it as a city, individuals, or as a community, black community as a whole. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you get sick and tired of being sick and tired of hearing the same word for over and over again. I believe that I would really like to see some performance metrics enacted into the distribution of capital funds and work as well. I mean, we have, and I said this in the meeting, you know, here in Asheville, we have a lot of natives who, as Michael said, we're having to leave here because we just don't have opportunity. And when you start looking at it and you start getting older, you know, when you're young, it's fine, you can survive here, it's okay. You might have some parents that might have a home or two, or you might have some relatives that, you know, can help you stay sustainable. But as you get older, you start seeing your family members losing their capital and their ability to be able to hold on real estate. When you see your parents not being able to work, and you see your friends not being able to work, and the people around you cannot own homes, it's highly discouraging. We're losing the brightest and the best of our black people in this city to other cities simply because they are willing to do three things. They're willing to give them opportunity, they're willing to give them homes, and they're willing to let them be, to be honest with you. They're willing to let them thrive, and they're willing to let them have self-determination. And that is an issue that we have in this city that has been continuous for years, decades, again. So I would like to see performance measures, and maybe, as Michael said, this could be a policy referral, but people just can't keep throwing money at the same people and expecting different results if nothing's changed thus far. And that's my hope.
I do have a question.
I think something that I have heard is that there's just one staff person really focusing on these issues. And I know we shouldn't make assumptions, but I'm wondering if it is a budget issue, can this commission make a recommendation that the city increase the budget to that program? So instead of one person, this responsibility can be shared between 2 or 3 people. It's my question, is like, would folks be comfortable making a budget request to the city to increase the budget?
Well, that budget will go to the money comes from.
Okay, yes, could we open the floor to council?
So, if you decide to make a policy recommendation that also includes budgetary funding for other positions, we are in the budget cycle. And so the budget has, the city manager's budget has been presented, but it has not been finalized. So if you're gonna do something, you can't wait till the next couple of meetings to do it, because we'll be past that and it'll be on next year's budget cycle. So now's the time. As far as where the money is gonna come from, I wouldn't necessarily bog myself down with trying to figure that out, because you're not gonna be able to figure that out. That's not gonna be I'm not saying you're not smart enough to figure it out, I'm just saying that, are you really gonna do that tonight? Are you really gonna like dig in the budget tonight and try to figure out what line item is gonna come from where? Just make the recommendation, if you feel that's what you need to do, and staff will pick up the pieces. That's, I don't wanna interject anymore.
I asked that. It's a broader issue, and the board has brought it up, is that most budgets are a base budget. You know, it's recurring. You know, every year you're gonna have to provide public safety, public works, and those core city services. And there's some organic growth in that, that's just the cost of doing business. So a very small fraction of the budget is typically new initiatives, new spending, and moving something around. But it looks like over the past years, some of those things that maybe were initially supposed to be one-time things have now just got built into the budget, into that base budget. It's not necessarily public works thing or public safety, you know, those core, you know, the biggest expense the city has is payroll. We get that, but the very small portions of the budget that typically have been somewhat discretionary is now finding itself more so in the permanent budget. And I think Councilman Young essentially alluded to about $300,000.
Yes, there's about $300,000 that doesn't go through any competitive process that is put in line items in the budget that people don't like talking about. I like talking about it, people don't like talking about
That just highlights, you know, when we're talking about policy recommendation. And it takes me back to my first meeting here. I said, we gotta figure out the game. And that somebody has figured out their game, but they need money every year. They don't have to do it every year.
All right, so, did you have anything else?
Are we, I mean, is what we're talking about actually making a recommendation tonight that Roseanne Mulcahy, that the city finds money to hire a full-time assistant for Roseanne Mulcahy and her outreach efforts?
I don't think it would be wise as a board to vote on something we just brought up for discussion the first time, because basically this is a debriefing from that meeting. In my opinion, this is basically what this is. I would like for us to keep talking about this in 2 months perhaps, or maybe 3 months, 90 days, be able to form a recommendation. Since especially, you know, we have new people that's gonna probably be coming on the board and other things, I would like to keep this discussion open so that anybody who comes on, we have a group tonight, that can be able to process this information and hear more about it. I do wanna see us as a board be able to make this recommendation going forward, because I feel like these are good policy initiatives. And if we don't bring it to them, who will?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, I just was, didn't council.
The window, and yeah, I just see that window. I don't know, you know, how able are we as a board, if we had a smaller window to get together, put this in a strategic plan to make it viable to be put forth as a policy recommendation? You understand what I'm saying?
Like to formalize it?
I think perhaps if we make a proposed amendment to the budget, that maybe a particular council person might want to propose it and at least have the debate. You're not asking for an assurance that you get the money, but once you get it out there, it's real hard for them. They can pretend all they want. Some things you can't unhear. And maybe perhaps trying to formulate an amendment that says we, you know, 30,000, 40,000, something like that. Maybe not the expectancy of getting a staff person, but getting it out there in the university, for council, so that maybe by the next budget cycle, we can perhaps visualize what a minority business program looks like, how it should be staffed, and what is the cost. But I think probably the first thing it needs to get out there. They need to be aware of, we are wholly dissatisfied with how it is operating today.
So my role as a liaison, and every council member's role as a liaison and board of commission is to, whatever your official actions are gonna be here tonight, it's still my duty to take back that information to council members. So whatever you decide to do, if you decide to do something, it is still my job to go back and say, HRCA did this tonight, and be prepared to have a discussion about it, because this was an official action of commission, as opposed to me just saying, hey, let's raise wages to $50 an hour. So I have to actually take that back to council.
What did you say was our budgetary deadline for this, if we wanted to go ahead and move forward?
All right, so it depends on when you all meet next, because our next meeting is gonna be the 28th. And then from the 28th, we're gonna have one more meeting in June, and that's gonna be the meeting that we actually formalize the budget. But really, when we go into the June 11th meeting, against June 11th, that's pretty much it. It's not necessarily like, we're not gonna throw any new stuff on the table, pretty much. It's gonna be, you got between now and the 28th. If you don't have any other meetings, you miss your window. If you want it to be included in this year's budget. If you just wanna talk about it for a couple of months, then you got till next year.
If I could just,
Yeah, and I just want to say, I understand the purpose of wanting to wait and talk it out, but I also want to say, as a commission, I think it's time to present something to council, and I think this is a time to be creative and try some stuff. And I'm also pushing, like, are we gonna really wait another year to the black population continues to decrease before we're like, let's finally do something? So I'm suggesting and urging this commission to make a recommendation that council funds it in the budget to hire someone else to support, and hire someone that can be able to pay their bills in Asheville, not just let's give someone $13 an hour. Yeah.
Maybe just have a plan to build out that.
Ms. Archie.
So I just wanted to add, I hear the concerns about, talking this through more and having a more, maybe a more official, policy recommendation, but as we heard from our councilman who had to leave, he had a, family thing he had to go to. As I also heard the pieces of the debrief, right, so although it may not be, eloquent and all of that, everything that you all said about your opinions, your feedback, or questions as a result of the disparity study
Yeah, that's probably what
So
you're
if you
talking
would like
about.
to just state that you're going to do your public comment now since you're using this as part
I
of
will,
your
but it's
decision.
pertinent to what you're discussing. Sam Powers made a recommendation to city council for Roxana to receive a $60,000 amendment at a council meeting 2 weeks ago. This is information you need to know. One of the things that I've done subsequent to that is had a conversation with Roxana, and she is looking for funding. They kind of gave up. One of the council members kind of shot back, go get the money back from under the nonprofit you've been funding to do this work. They are looking desperately for funds. So if you would talk to her and talk to her boss, Sam Powers took the recommendation up to council's dais for her, and he got kind of shot down with that comment because they're tired of people being paid and not performing. And they are paying nonprofits to do technical assistance work. There are 3 or 4 of them in the city, and they've been tenured 20 years or longer. Let me say that we've had 5 minority business coordinators. We wrote the initial plan for Asheville City and Buncombe County. It was 1, we used to have 1 office. I won't go into all of that, but you do need to know that. My conversation with Roxana has been, and we have data that shows this effect. We've been studying it as well as the disparity study. Particularly black contractors get 0.5%. If you got like $1 bill and you got 100 pennies in it, you take that penny and divide it up in 10 ways. Black contractors get 0.5 of that 1 cent. Okay, and it's been that way. The reason why there was a law is a legal obligation. Richmond versus Crowson. You cannot have race-conscious measures if you do not have a current disparity study. So those are things that you need to know. But that conversation, and I've met with her subsequently, about the inability, it's not about staff. Let me just say this. A lot of times, and I'm a native too, most of y'all probably have come here or you're younger or whatever. But let me just say that when people want to set something up for failure, they most of the time don't get the most competent people. That's been my experience. And so this is what has happened. The owner, there's another legal involved in that. The owners of these projects cannot provide technical assistance to minority contractors. There is a conflict of interest. This has to be rightly contracted out, or they can be challenged. The city can't be challenged. Most people who have these jobs are bureaucrats. They've never owned a business, never made payroll, so they're, it's the definition of insanity to think they can morph into something they're not. So at any rate, key performance metrics and accountability, and just talk to Sam and talk to Roxana, because they know what they need.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
With that piece of information that we have just been given, because I was not able to discuss that, so I'm glad that we have heard that information, because otherwise we would not know that process has gone on already as well. So basically what I've heard is that that money has been earmarked, $60,000 has been earmarked to be able to be given to increase staff and performance, correct?
No, it's not, and they refuse.
They refused it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
that's,
why we need to make the ask.
She's going out after private funds to try to bring to contracts work out. Betty tells us that even when we had staff, city county staff, 94 5, the numbers weren't even that bad. Let me just say that for various sundry reasons. If you're talking about developing pipeline contracts, you're not talking about going out here and finding somebody qualified. You have to develop them. It's called business development, and that's for a good reason. Okay, so this is a business of developing contractors who have potential and teaching them. You cannot teach somebody how to do a commercial gig or expect them to be a member. Okay, so I'll leave that, but the nuances of that
but it's gotta be logical, you know? And empower you all to get with Ms. Archie or her designee, to prepare that, get it back to us as quickly as possible, so that by the time the next council meeting occurs in 2 weeks, that we should have something before us.
Right now, is that a motion?
Yes, it is a motion.
Can we have a second, please? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Okay. Are there any more comments? We have about 9 more minutes left.
I wanted to bring up, and hopefully everybody saw this in the Mountain Express, Deborah Campbell recently spoke, and the headline is, Campbell calls racial disparities Asheville's biggest challenge. Did you guys see this? It's a nice little piece, and I hope everybody can read it. That's why we're here. So I just thought I'd bring this.
All right, so,
On the agenda, I think we skipped discussing we touched on discussing the HRCA reappointments. If you all can communicate with me if you would like to be eligible for reappointment, please do that.
all right, so just, it's time to adjourn the meeting.
More public comment?
I just have one comment about the community engagement subcommittee. Leah, can you send out emails to schedule our next subcommittee meeting, probably like in the next 2 weeks or so?
And I do want to say that, just today specifically, this really was a great meeting. I feel that the vision of this commission is coming into fruition as far as action plans is concerned. And there is some new business that I wanted to put out there, and it's just pertaining to us. We can discuss it further, but it's pertaining to us actually looking at businesses, even if we just start with downtown, to create some type of performance metrics as far as individuals actually being inclusive.